A Tale of a Muslim Girl and Her Infidel Lover. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This is an intriguing epic story which resonates with love, resilience, courage, and sacrifice. Before we dive into the tapestry of the story, I would like to inform the reader that this novel is narrated in 3 books. Book 1. The beginning of forbidden love between a university Muslim student and her infidel professor. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on a real life of a Muslim girl in Sudan. Therefore, all names, characters, places, and events are either the product of the author's imagination or used literary. Any resemblance to real people, living or dead, events or locales is merely coincidental. Chapter 21. The Importance of Honor and the Danger of Love for a Muslim Woman. The Muslim girl relentlessly pursuit of her love for the Christian man led her to a dangerous end. However, they said even God cannot change the past. Despite that, Dr. Ibtihal would do anything she could if she could alter her past life. She hated the day in which she was born as a girl, she despised the society in which she was born, she abhorred her luck that brought her to the University of Khartoum, and she regretted the day in which she broke her promise to her father and fell in love with an infidel man. No matter how much she condemned herself, the Muslim girl knew that her life came to an end when she received that blackmailing letter. She has fallen prey to the hands of a selfish and malicious person. A man who saw nothing in a woman except her body. Dr. Ibtihal tried desperately to find an escape from that monstrous creature who incarnated into the form of a human being, but she found none. She understood the only possible way out was to end her life. She also knows that if she killed herself, then she would disgrace her father and stop him from being the imam of the mosque, dishonor her royal family, destroy her love, and condemn herself in hellfire forever. Having been left with no choice, she succumbed to the evil demand of her blackmailer and gave him what he wanted. But she did not know that the woman's blackmailer was no different from a contagious disease or cancer that would not leave her body until he destroys her completely. The more she gives him her body, the more he wants, the more of it. She has become a helpless victim in his hands. She has become a victim under her blackmailer's beckon and calls. He forced her to be entirely subservient to him, and be responsive to his request any day and at any time. He raped her many times and even compelled her to practice with him anal sex. While Dr. Ibtihal was going through those humiliating moments, she hid that from everyone, even her lover and husband. On that Thursday on which she was supposed to meet her infidel lover, she went and met her blackmailer. The last person she expected to blackmail her was her psychiatrist. She had fallen at his feet and begged him to take money from her and protect her honor. She wept before him like a person who was dragged to the gallows. The more she begged him, the more he insisted on his evil demand. Therefore, she had to choose between either sleeping with him, killing herself, or killing him. Because of her father's honor, the purity of the love of her lover, and her future, she allowed him to steal her virginity and defile her body. On that black day, Dr. Ibtihal felt she had been slaughtered and destroyed forever. The only 2 precious things that kept her from killing herself are the honor of her Muslim father and the love of her Christian lover. She sacrificed her honor to keep the honor of her father. She allowed her body to be defiled to keep the purity of her love. After that Black Thursday, the psychiatrist Ismail had turned the daughter of the imam of the mosque into his sex slave. Whenever and wherever he wants her, he forces her to come and satisfy his animalistic and selfish desire. He expected her to be his patient and prisoner forever. He raped her repeatedly in his house and in his clinic. The African man Ismail decided to take revenge on the Arab girl Ibtihal because his former Arab girlfriend Saham was forcefully separated from him and given in marriage to her Arab cousin. So the evil man took revenge on the victimized girl Dr. Ibtihal. The so-called psychiatrist turned out to be suffering from an inferiority complex, and hence he needs a psychiatrist to treat him from his Oedipus complex. Many narrators of the story described in detail the humiliating experience that the girl Dr. Ibtihal went through with her evil and selfish psychiatrist. However, I preferred to avoid mentioning those painful details with the purpose of honoring the great sacrifice that the victim Ibtihal had offered to protect the honor of her Muslim father and the love of her Christian lover. A noble girl like Dr. Ibtihal understood that her father and lover have as equal rights as she has for herself. In her autobiography, the physician Ibtihal Taha Al-Amin had mentioned that she learned from that dark side of her life something of great importance. She understood that the most painful and cruel experience that a woman can go through is being a slave to someone. Therefore, she concluded that the loving and just God could not possibly have allowed the men to enslave and rape the woman without marrying her. This conclusion has created huge doubts in her mind regarding the teachings of the Quran about the war captive slaves and the sexual life of her prophet with his 3 enslaved women, Maria, Safiya, and Rehana. Chapter 22. On being a sex slave. Dr. Ibtihal could not be able to meet her lover on that fateful Thursday evening. Before she went to meet her evil blackmailer, she phoned her lover Samir and told him she wouldn't be able to come because she is not well. We should not repeat again what happened to her on that day except that when she returned to her house, she felt she was a different girl. She concluded that the pure and virgin girl Ibtihal was slaughtered on that evening, and a defiled and defeated woman took her place. She could not be able to sleep the whole night. She continued to weep and lament her lost purity and her robbed virginity. After that Black Thursday, the abused girl Ibtihal spent horrifying days full of nightmares and fears. As I have promised, I must avoid mentioning more details and leave a few sad events that followed that fateful evening and go directly to her love life. It took her 2 weeks to gather her shattered self and return to her medical work and her romantic life. During those sad days, she informed the hospital and her lover that she was sick, which true. Although Samir did not know what happened exactly, but had missed his beloved Ibtihal and suffered a lot during that painful separation. What made him suffer more was that he is not allowed to call her on the phone or visit her at her place. His soul is revived, and his heart is flooded with joy when his beloved girlfriend called him after 2 weeks and told him she wanted to meet him at the Hamad floating restaurant. When Dr. Samir saw his beloved in the restaurant, he could not believe his eyes. She has totally changed in her looks. He could not see the beautiful, happy, intelligent girl he had fallen in love with. Her face is downcast, and black circles surrounded her eyes. Her eyes revealed that she had not slept for many days and nights. She put on her Islamic dress that covered all her body and hair. She is like a caterpillar who came out of her ugly cocoon and became a colorful butterfly, and then she went back to her demeaning black coffin and buried her beauty again in a burqa. She is not smiling and looks sad and angry. Dr. Samir felt as if his beloved girl lost someone or something that was so dear to her. He did not see a sick person but a dejected and defeated girl. What has happened to you, sweetie? Nothing, darling. I am still sick. You are an unhappy girl. I missed you so much. Dr. Ibtihal burst into tears when she spoke those words. I missed you too, sweetie. While Dr. Samir is speaking those words, he puts his hand on his beloved's cheek. He felt her cheek was cold and lifeless. I am sure you are hiding something from me. Please, sweetie, open your heart and tell me what happened to you. Why don't you believe me, my darling? I am still a sick woman. There is nothing else that has happened to me. Well, I trust you. I know you have never lied to me before. Samir, spoke the heartbroken girl, and then looked at her lover. Dr. Samir was surprised when his girlfriend addressed him by his name. She had not called him Samir for a long time. She always called him my lover or my dear. Yes, my sweetie. Do you remember what you told me last time about those 3 slave girls who lived with the Prophet Muhammad? Dr. Samir's worries have turned into panic when his beloved Muslim girlfriend has asked him that question. He immediately concluded that he was the cause of all her suffering and unhappiness that she went through during her absence. Please, sweetie, forgive me for mentioning those stories to you. I really didn't want to hurt your religious sentiments. I am deeply sorry for causing such sadness in your happy life. You did nothing wrong, dear. In fact, I am very thankful to you. I just want you to tell me now the stories of those 3 slave women in detail. Why are you insisting on hearing something that troubles your heart and confuses your mind? Believe me, Samir, said Ibtihal while trying to force a smile on her dry lips, those stories will bring comfort to my sad heart. I want to put myself in the place of these women and experience the humiliation that the slaves would go through when they were forced to sleep with someone without marriage and against their wishes. I just cannot imagine how a woman could survive after she has been subjected to such kind of sexual abuse and brutal rape. Dr. Samir could not believe his eyes when he saw his girlfriend's miserable condition when she came to the restaurant, but now he even doubted the girl who was sitting in front of him is in fact his beloved girl Ibtihal. How could she speak openly against her prophet? Sweetie, in those 2 weeks you have changed a lot. I am really confused. I am very convinced something bad has happened to you. Samir, said Ibtihal angrily, if you tell me this again, I will get up and leave you forever. I told you there is nothing and you said you trust me. I rather prefer you to kill me than you go and leave me forever. Then if you don't want me to leave you, please dear tell me in detail about Safiya bint Huwaya and Maria the Copt, and if the Prophet Muhammad had other slaves besides those 2 abused women. In fact, the Prophet of Islam had 3 slaves with whom he slept without marrying them. 2 were Jewish girls known as Safiya bint Huyai and Rayhana bint Amro. The third one was Maria the Copt. She was a Christian girl. Safiya was the daughter of Huwaya ibn Akhtab, who was one of the Jewish leaders. The Prophet had killed her father with 900 surrendered Jews in Medina. When Muhammad invaded Khaybar, the Jewish city, he killed Safiya's husband, her brother, and many of her Jewish people. Her husband was Kanana bin al-Rabi'a. Safiya said, I have never hated any man more than the Prophet because he killed my husband. Before killing him, he tortured him to death and extracted from him the hiding place of his treasure and stole his wealth. In the beginning, Safiya was taken as a captive slave by a Muslim man called Dahaya al-Kalib. When the Prophet heard she was a beautiful girl, he took her from Dahaya. While the Prophet was having sex with Safiya, his guard Abu Ayyub spent the night at the door of the Prophet. When the Messenger of God woke up and said, Allahu Akbar, there was a sword with Abu Ayyub. Abu Ayyub said, O Messenger of God, she is a newly married woman, and you killed her father, her brother, and her husband, so I did not feel secure about you with her. The Messenger of God laughed and said, it all went well. The story of Safiya is mentioned in detail in Al-Sirah al-Halabiyah, Ibn Hisham, and Tabaqat ibn Sa'd. That is an awfully sad story. How could a person force a woman to sleep with him on the same day he killed her husband and other relatives? I call such an act nothing except rape. When Dr. Ibtihal spoke those words, she remembered her humiliating rape experience by the evil man Ismail. She concluded that Safiya must have experienced something worse than her. I see it that way too. Tell me what happened to the other 2 sexually abused girls. The narrators of the biography of the Prophet did not say much about Rayhana bint Amro. All they mentioned about her was that she was too a Jewish slave girl whom the Prophet captured in one of his raids. He offered her to accept Islam, and he would set her free and marry her. She told him, "I would rather be with you as a slave girl and follow my religion than accept Islam." According to Ibn Kathir, she hardened her heart and refused to accept Islam, and died in her unbelief. Maria the Coptic was a Christian slave. The Makwokas, the king of Egypt, gave her to the Prophet as a gift. She was not counted by Muslim scholars as one of the wives of the Prophet or mothers of the faithful, because she remained a Christian and slave. She bore him a son, Ibrahim, who died in infancy. In the beginning, the Prophet treated her just like his maidservant. She used to serve his wives. One day Hafsa, one of his wives, caught him having sexual intercourse with Maria in her room. His wife Hafsa shouted at him angrily, "O Prophet of God, you do this in my room and in my day." Afraid of the anger of his other wives, and especially of his most beloved Aisha, he promised Hafsa never to touch Maria again if she kept the matter secret. But she spoke out, and the matter reached the ears of Aisha. When Aisha confronted him, he said he had received a revelation from heaven which justified and legalized his action with Maria, Surah 66, verse 3. That is another shame. How could someone have sex with his maidservant? The story of Maria has not finished yet. After some time, Maria became pregnant and delivered a baby boy whom the Prophet named Ibrahim. When Aisha saw Maria's son, she told the Prophet that the child did not resemble him. Then, a rumor reached the Prophet's ears that Maria was in fact became pregnant from the man who brought her from Egypt, and that Ibrahim was not the Prophet's own son. Muhammad was outraged and sent Ali ibn Abi Talib to strike off the neck of the man. But the man had escaped the death penalty when it appeared that he was not capable of having sexual intercourse because he was a eunuch or his penis was already cut off. Sahih Muslim, Hadith number 4975. Muhammad didn't follow the same principle when his wife Aisha was accused of having sex with Safwan ibn al-Muta'al. Yes, that is unfair. I know the story of Aisha when she was accused of having sex with Safwan ibn al-Muta'al. Most probably because Aisha was his beloved wife. Yes, that might be the reason the Prophet didn't order the killing of Safwan. By the way, do you know how old Aisha was when the Prophet married her, and when he had sex with her? I know she was 6-year-old when he married her, and she became 9-year-old when he had sex with her. Do you think she was at the right age when he had sex with her? I don't think so. By the way, my father did the same thing. He married an underage girl who is much younger than me. You cannot blame your Muslim father because he followed the example of the Prophet Muhammad. I don't think a 9-year-old girl is ready for sex or marriage. She is just a child. I don't think any girl can be ready for marriage until she reaches 18. Aisha became 18 when the Prophet died. Those slaves most probably went through very horrifying and humiliating experiences. No doubt about it. Dear Samir, what will you do if someone rapes me? I will kill that person. And what will you do to me? I will love you even more. In hearing that, the terribly abused girl Dr. Ibtihal held her lover close to her chest and began to kiss him, as if she has never kissed him before. Chapter 23. The rebellious wife is compelled to have sex with her Muslim husband. 2 months after that Black Thursday, in which the only daughter of the Imam of the biggest mosque in the city of Al-Ghadarif was raped for the first time by the evil man Ismail, her life went from bad to worse. He violently stole her virginity and defiled her body. During those 2 months, she was blackmailed and raped regularly by her psychiatrist doctor. He raped her many times in his house at Omdurman and in his psychiatric clinic in Khartoum. Meanwhile, her love affair with her infidel lover Samir remained steady and strong. Things went like this until one day the abused girl Ibtihal Haj Taha discovered something terrible had happened to her against her wish. She came to know that she is 2 months pregnant. When she made that awful discovery, she concluded that everything she was trying to protect was exposed and destroyed. The honor of her Muslim father and the love of her Christian lover are both shattered into bits and pieces. How can she claim innocence when neither her husband nor her lover had sex with her? How can she dare to convince any of them that the child in her womb is his child? Dr. Ibtihal knew the only solution was to abort the baby. Unfortunately, abortion in Sudan is a serious crime, and there is no doctor or midwife who will agree to perform such a risky and illegal operation. Being a doctor herself, Dr. Ibtihal knew that she would not be able to remove the baby from her womb without risking her life. Even if she succeeded in aborting the baby, she would be tormented with the feeling of guilt of killing an innocent child all the rest of her life. She then thought of telling her lover the truth and begging him to protect her by taking responsibility for her illegal pregnancy. She dismissed such a risky idea when she realized that in Sudan there is severe punishment for adultery. In her case, she might be stoned to death if the Sharia court found out that a man had impregnated her while she is having another husband. The other alternative is her husband. How could she convince him to take responsibility without telling him how she fell victim to the hands of her blackmailer and rapist? If he would not kill her, her husband for sure would inform her father. If the news of her illegal pregnancy reached her father, then everything she tried to protect would be discovered. While she was desperately trying to find an escape from her tragedy, an idea came to her mind. Although it may look selfish and disgusting, Dr. Ibtihal understood that it is her last anchor of hope of saving her father's honor and rescuing her love. On a Thursday night, Dr. Ibtihal returned from the Hamad floating restaurant to her house at midnight. For a few days, she hesitated on carrying out her plan of escape. On that particular night, she decided to execute her plan. She entered her room and changed her clothes quickly. Then she put on one of her night dresses. She spent a few minutes in front of the mirror. After that she left her room, went to her husband's room, and began to knock on his door. "Who is there?" shouted Tariq. "Ibtihal." "What do you want, tomboy?" said her husband Tariq sarcastically. "I want to talk to you." "Regarding what?" "I will tell you when I come in." Tariq opened the door and looked angrily at his wife. He is already drunk. His wife can see drunkenness in his red eyes and smell the liquor coming from his mouth. He looks repulsive. "What do you want to tell me?" "Can I come in?" Tariq opened the door fully and allowed his wife in. Without taking his permission, his wife went straight and sat on his bed. Tariq is a bit angry with her unexpected behavior. He stood like a statue looking at her. "Can you sit, please?" She then pointed at him to sit near her on his bed. Instead, Tariq sat in an armchair and continued to stare at her. "My husband Tariq," said the lovely wife Dr. Ibtihal in a sexy feminine voice, "I have come to apologize to you." "To apologize for what?" "For my disrespectful behavior towards you." "You have come at this late hour of the night to apologize to me." "I am deeply sorry, Tariq. I have been changed. I cannot understand what you are trying to tell me. Dr. Ismail was able to convince me that I am a girl and not a boy." Tariq looked at his wife with mistrust and said, "How did he do that?" "Believe me, Tariq, he is such an excellent psychiatric doctor. He asked a simple question: does your father believe that you are a boy? I answered him yes. Then he said to me, if your father believes that you are a boy, then why did your dad allow you to marry a man? That simple question suddenly opened my eyes, and I understood at once that my father is calling me his son because he doesn't have a son, but deep in his heart, he knows that I am a girl. Excellent. Now, what are you planning to do? Are you going to treat me as your roommate or your lawful husband? Of course, you are my husband from today. The abused girl Ibtihal spoke those words and pretended to be shy. Tariq continued to look at her, as if he wants her to take the initial step and beg him to have sex with her. If you are not ready tonight, I will go back to my room, and any time you want me on your bed you can call me. Of course, I am ready now. Then Tariq got up from his chair, walked towards his bride, and sat beside her. Dr. Ibtihal covered her face to hide her tears when she felt Tariq's hands surround her. She felt like vomiting when his smelly mouth began to suck and lick her lips like a mad dog. Her tears are falling like big drops of rain while her husband is fucking her up. When he emptied his semen inside her pussy, she felt like he has strangled and killed her and defiled her body all over again. At that night the wife Ibtihal felt extremely miserable and experienced the same pain she felt when Dr. Ismail raped her for the first time. Her conscience troubled her throughout the night. Early morning, she injected her thumb with a needle that she brought with her. Then she squeezed her thumb until enough blood came out of it. She sprinkled some blood on the white bed sheet that covered the bed on which she had sex with her husband. Then she carefully applied some blood in her underwear and some in her husband's underwear. She had done that to make her Muslim husband think she was a virgin when he slept with her, and he was the first man to break her hymen. That is the way the wife Dr. Ibtihal had carried out her plan to make her Muslim husband Tariq believe that the illegitimate baby in her womb is his own child. Chapter 24. From where did the Prophet Muhammad get those stories? The life of Dr. Ibtihal is full of surprises and challenges that made her have no control over her present and future. Against her wish, she became 3 personalities in one person. She is a sex slave to her evil blackmailer, the psychiatrist Ismail, a night wife to her Muslim husband Tariq, and a beloved to her infidel Christian lover Samir. For that reason, she has a master, owner, and lover. Between those 3 people, her life is turning and twisting every day. She wanted to free herself from her blackmailer, but she could not. She desires to marry her longed-for Christian lover, but it seemed unattainable. She stayed away from her husband and denied him her body, but finally, her circumstances forced her to give him what she thought did not belong to him. Her life appeared at this stage as leading her nowhere. What she wanted to get she did not get, and what she hated that she found. Should we conclude she is a failure in life? Before jumping to such a hasty conclusion, we need to wait. Only the events of the story as they keep unfolding will tell. Ibtihal's effort to win her lover to her religion does not bear fruit yet. On the contrary, the more she discussed religion with her lover, the more doubts accumulated in her mind. She could not be able to refute a single point or a story that he put before her so far. Despite that, Ibtihal continued to believe that her religion is the only true religion, and all other religions are either man-made such as Hinduism and Buddhism, or corrupted and distorted heavenly religions like Judaism and Christianity. Notwithstanding, her last discussion with her lover has removed the last ground on which she stood and sincerely defended her religion. Dr. Samir argued against the teachings of Islam about jihad and spreading that Arab terrorist religion by the sword, misogynistic attitudes towards women, hatred of Jews and Christians, raping slaves without marrying them, and the married life of the Prophet Muhammad. Despite the undeniable facts that her lover has presented, the daughter of the greatest learned religious man, and the imam of the biggest mosque in her city, is not convinced that she is following the wrong religion. This belief, however, has been seriously shaken by the following strong arguments. Okay, dear Samir, I want to ask you one question. If the Quran is not the word of God, then how did our illiterate prophet know all those stories of the ancient prophets? Since he could neither read nor write, then how did he get all those stories? This is a good question, my sweetie. Just be patient with me tonight and listen carefully to what I am going to say. First of all, I have no doubt that Muhammad had never read the heavenly scriptures of the Jewish Torah and the Christian four Gospels. I also believe that he had not even listened to Jewish rabbis or Christian scholars. The Quran testifies to this fact. Then my question is, how did he get those stories of the ancient Jewish prophets? From the ordinary Jews and Christians that lived in the Arabian Peninsula at his time. He heard those stories from simple Jews who did not know how to distinguish between the true story, as recorded in the Old Testament, and the fables and legends that were added to it by the Jewish commentators. You have read the entire Bible, and you had told that it contradicts the Quran in many areas. Now I am going to show my sweet girl why there are contradictions in the story of a particular prophet in the Bible and the Quran. Let us begin with the story of the prophet Abraham. In Surah Al-Anbiya 21, verses 62 to 68, the Quran says, "They said, 'Art thou the one that did this with our gods, O Abraham?' He said, 'Nay, this was done by, this is their biggest one. Ask them if they can speak intelligently.' So they turned to themselves and said, 'Surely ye are the ones in the wrong.' Then they were confounded with shame. They said, 'Thou knowest full well that these idols do not speak.' Abraham said, 'Do ye then worship, besides God, things that can neither be of any good to you nor do you harm? Fie upon you, and upon the things that you worship besides God. Have ye no sense?' They said, 'Burn him and protect your gods if ye do anything at all.' Now this story of Abraham cannot be found in the Bible at all. Then from where our prophet had learned it if it had not been shown to him by the angel of God? Have patience, sweetie. I will tell you in a moment. Where did Muhammad get it? He got it from a Jewish commentary called Midrash Rabbah. This Jewish book is meant to be a commentary on the Old Testament. It is full of legends and fables added later on. Most probably, the Jewish rabbi added this story with the intention to elevate the status of Abraham, or to show how did he suffer for his faith in God. Here is the story mentioned in this religious book. Terah was a maker of idols. Once he went out somewhere and seated Abraham as a salesman in place of himself. Once a woman came, carrying in her hand a plate of wheaten flour. She said to him, "Here. Set this before them." He arose, took a stick in his hand, and broke them all in pieces. Then he gave the stick into the hand of the one that was biggest among them. When his father came, he said to him, "Who has done this unto them?" He, Abraham, said to him, "What is hidden from the tree?" A woman came, bringing with her a plate of wheaten flour, and she said to me, "Here. Set this before them." I set it before them. This one said, "I shall eat first," and that one said, "I shall eat first." This one, which is the biggest among them, arose, took a stick, and broke them. He, the father, said to him, "Why thou tell me a fable? Do these understand?" He, Abraham, said to him, "And do not your ears hear what thy lip speaketh?" Can you see now from where the Quran had found the story? Yes, I can see that, but in the Quran Abraham's father is called Azar, and in this Jewish book is named Terah. How can we explain this difference? The Quran here had confused the name of Abraham's servant Eliezer with his father. Most probably Muhammad, when he heard the story of Abraham told by someone, he remembered the name of the servant. The story of Eliezer is mentioned in the Torah of Moses, in the book Genesis chapter 15, verse 2. How could the book of Allah confuse the name of the father with the name of the servant? In fact, the Quran is full of such kind of confusion. I will give you an example. The Quran confused the name of Mary, the mother of Jesus, with the name of Miriam, the sister of Moses and Aaron. In Arabic, both women are called Miriam. But the first Miriam lived 500 years before the mother of Jesus. Even so, whenever the Quran speaks about the mother of Jesus, it refers to her as the sister of Aaron and daughter of Imran. Yes, you are right. The Quran calls the mother of Jesus the sister of Aaron and the daughter of Imran. If it is from God, then why such confusion is found in it? Anyway, let us talk about another example. In the Quran, we read the story of Cain and Abel. When Cain killed his brother Abel, he did not know what to do with a dead body. In Surah Al-Ma'idah 5, verse 34, the Quran says, Then God sent a raven, who scratched the ground, to show him how to hide the shame of his brother. We don't find this story in the entire Holy Bible. It is neither in the Old Testament nor in the New Testament. The Quran got this story from a Jewish book of myths and fables called the Perk Rabbi Eliezer. This is the story as it is mentioned in this book. Adam and his companion sat weeping and mourning for him, Abel, and did not know what to do with him, as the burial was unknown to them. Then came a raven, whose companion was dead, took its body, scratched in the earth, and hid it before their eyes. Then said Adam, I shall do as this raven has done, and at once he took Abel's corpse, dug in the earth, and hid it. The difference between this story and the story of the Quran can be explained when we say that Muhammad did not copy the story from this book, but he heard it from an ordinary Jew. That Jew confused what Adam did with the dead body with what this book said his son Cain did to his murdered brother. Dr. Ibtihol is putting her chin on her two arms and looking and listening carefully to what her lover is saying. Then she smiled and said, another confusion. There are so many myths and fables mentioned in Jewish commentaries and Christian apocryphal books that the Quran included. The story of Solomon speaking with birds and demons. The story of the people of the cave is mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf 18. This story is not mentioned in the Bible. It is a Christian legend invented almost 200 years after the books of the Bible were canonized by the early fathers of the Church. Can you tell me another Christian story that the Quran included but not found in the four Gospels of the Christian Bible? Yes, I can. Perhaps the most interesting story that shows the author of the Quran does not distinguish between true story and myth is the story of the Virgin Mary and the birth of Jesus. The Quran tells us that Mary was brought up in the Jewish Holy Temple. Then, it gives us so many details about her life there. Those details we do not find in any one of the four canonized Gospels of the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel of Mark, the Gospel of Luke, and the Gospel of John. Then, where did the Quran get those details? The answer is simple, from some Christian apocryphal writings. Those apocryphal writings were merely myths and fables invented by some Christian writers. Here is one example. In a Coptic book called History of the Virgin, we find the story of Mary told in this fashion. She was nourished in the temple like the doves, and food was brought to her from the heavens by the angels of God. And she was wont to do service in the temple. The angels of God used to minister unto her. But they used often to bring her fruits also from the tree of life, that she might eat of them with joy. And in another Coptic work entitled The Story of the Decease of Joseph, the following passage occurs. Mary used to dwell in the temple and worship there with holiness, and she grew up until she became 12 years old. In her parents' house, she was over 3 years, and in the temple of the Lord 9 years more. Then the priests, when they perceived that that virgin lived chastely and dwelt in the fear of the Lord, spake to one another, saying, Let us seek out a good man and betroth her unto him until the time of the marriage feast. And they forthwith summoned the tribe of Judah, and chose out from it 12 men according to the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. The choice fell upon that good old man, Joseph. These details are not mentioned in any gospel, and it is obvious that the Quran had borrowed from this Coptic book. Yet another apocryphal book called Proto-Evangelium narrates the story of the Virgin Mary after she had conceived by her firstborn Jesus as follows. And the priest said, Mary, why hast thou done this and hast humbled thy soul? Thou hast forgotten the Lord thy God, thou who wast brought up in the Holy of Holies, and didst receive food at an angel's hand, and didst hear the hymns. Why hast thou done this? But she wept bitterly, saying, As the Lord God liveth, I am pure in his sight, and I know not a man. In another apocryphal book called History of the Nativity of Mary and the Infancy of the Savior, the story of Jesus bringing fruits from a palm tree is mentioned in this book as follows. When Mary sat down, she looked up to the top of the palm tree, and seeing it full of fruit said to Joseph, I desire, if it is possible, to take of the fruit of this palm tree. And Joseph said to her, I marvel that thou speakest thus, since thou sayest how high the branches of this palm tree are. But I am extremely anxious about water, for it has now been exhausted in our skin bottles, and we have nowhere whence we can fill them and quench our thirst. Then the child Jesus, who with joyful countenance lay in his mother the Virgin Mary's bosom, said to the palm tree, O tree, lower thy branches and feed my mother with thy fruits. Instantly the palm tree at this word bowed its head to the sole of Mary's feet, and they plucked the fruit which it bore, and were fed. Of course, the story is mentioned in this book with little difference than the details of the Quran, but no one can doubt that the latter borrowed from the former. I can see that too. The lovely girl Ibtihal spoke this sentence almost weeping. These are just a few examples to show you where the Quran got those stories. In fact, every story in the Quran can be traced to some sources. Even the narrations of the Quran about paradise, the virgin girls, rivers of wine, hellfire, etc., all those accounts are borrowed from a Persian religion called Zoroastrianism, which was founded by a false prophet known as Zoroaster. Okay, dear Samir, let me agree with you that every story mentioned in the Quran, and not found in the Bible, can be traced to some human origin. Now my question to you, from where did the Quran get the teachings about praying, fasting, pilgrimage, alms, ablution before prayer, etc.? Who taught our Prophet Muhammad all those religious practices? As far as my knowledge is concerned, neither Christians nor Jews do these practices. Even followers of other religions such as Hindus and Buddhists, I don't believe they practice these rituals. This is an exceptionally good question. I will answer you in a minute. Before Muhammad came, there was an Arab cult called Hanafiya. This cult began in Yemen and spread in the Arabian Peninsula. The followers of that cult used to worship a god called Al-Rahman. The grandfather of Muhammad, Abdul-Muttalib, was a follower of that Arab cult. Muhammad too followed that religion in the beginning, and used to go with his grandfather Abdul-Muttalib to the cave of Hira, and worship that god. Not knowing where this cult originated, the author of the Quran attributed it to the Jewish great ancestor Abraham. The followers of the Hanafiya used to practice circumcision, pilgrimage to Mecca, ablution after sexual intercourse, rejection of idol worship, belief in one God in whose hands are good and bad, and that everything in the universe was predestined and written. They also abstained from drinking alcohol, eating dead animals, blood, swine, and everything that was slaughtered without calling on the name of Allah, or which was dedicated to idols. There were people who lived in Syria known as Sabaeans. They are mentioned in the Quran. The Sabaeans claimed that Seth founded their religion, the son of Adam, and by the prophet Idris known in the Bible as Enoch. They had a book which they called the Book of Seth. The Sabaeans had certain religious rites, among which are 7 fixed times of prayer, 5 of which correspond with that of the Muslims. The 6th is the prayer at dawn, and the 7th is a prayer, the time for which is at the end of the 6th hour of the night. Their prayer, like that of Muslims, is one that requires real earnestness, and that the worshipper should not let his attention wander to anything else when offering it. They prayed over the dead without either bowing or touching the ground with their foreheads down or prostration, and fasted 30 days, and if the month of the new moon were a short one, then they kept their fast for 29 days. In connection with their fast, they observed the Eid of Fitr, breaking the fast at the end of the month, and Hilal, new moon, in such a way that the festival of Fitr occurred when the sun entered Aries. And they used to fast from the 4th quarter of the night until the setting of the disk of the sun. And they had Eids at the time of the descending of the 5 planets to the mansions of their dignity. The 5 planets are Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and Mercury. And they used to honor and perform the pilgrimage to the house of Allah in Mecca city, the Black Kaaba. Then, what the news that our Prophet had brought, asked the sad girl Dr. Ibtihal in great astonishment. A Christian Byzantine emperor had asked a Muslim scholar from Persia, during a religious debate, or dialogue, the same question you are asking me now. The emperor gave a good and correct answer to the same question. Show me just what Muhammad brought that is new, and there you will find things only evil and inhuman, such as his command to spread his religion by the sword. This question I am citing from the dialogue held with a certain Muslim Persian, the worthy Mautaris, in Ankara of Galatia, written in 1391 as an expression of the views of the Byzantine Emperor Manuel II, Palaeologus, one of the last Christian rulers before the fall of Constantinople to the Muslim Ottoman Empire, on such issues as forced conversion, holy war, and the relationship between faith and reason. The only news that our prophet brought to the world is violence. I am sorry to say that, but Muhammad brought eviler than violence. His misogynistic teachings and his hostility and violence towards Jews, Christians, and followers of other religions. My dear Samir, I do agree with you, and at the same time, I don't agree with you. I know whatever you have said is true, and I cannot deny the facts you have presented to me. But Islam is the religion of my father and mother. I was born and brought up as a Muslim girl. I just cannot think of myself of being anything else except a Muslim woman. Dr. Ibtihal spoke those last words while she is weeping terribly. Dr. Samir put his arms around her and began to comfort her. Then, his mouth found her lips and began to kiss her vehemently. Chapter 25. Officer, there is a prostitute in my house. 3 months passed since Dr. Ibtihal discovered that she had become pregnant through rape by her evil psychiatrist. She hid this fact from her lover. To carry out her cover-up plan successfully, she has decided to inform her husband that she is pregnant. Then she must tell him he is the father of her yet-to-be-born baby. Therefore, she waited patiently for a month to pass from the day she slept with him for the first time. On the same day, she decided to break this news to him. Something unexpected happened in her house. In the evening, in which she met her handsome lover in the Hamad floating restaurant, and had that long religious discussion, the daughter of Hajj Taha decided to tell her husband about her pregnancy. That night she reached home extremely late. She expected to find that her husband had finished his liquor drinking, and went to bed. She told herself even if he fell asleep that night, she should wake him up and tell him. Therefore, when Dr. Ibtihal entered her house, she heard the sound of music and someone talking with her husband. When she came closer to his room, she was extremely shocked when she heard the voice of a girl talking to her husband. She overcame her shock and knocked hard on the door. How could her husband bring to her home a woman in her absence? "Who is there?" shouted her drunkard husband Tariq. "I am your wife, Ibtihal. Can you come tomorrow morning?" "I want to talk to you now," said his wife angrily. "I have someone with me now." "Tariq, you must open the door." "I told you I have someone with me now." "I heard a voice of a woman." Dr. Ibtihal waited for a reply from her husband, but she heard none. "Tariq, you must open the door." Before she repeated her request, her husband opened the door. Dr. Ibtihal could not believe her eyes when she saw a young girl lying in the bed of her husband. The lovely girl is almost naked. Therefore, the outraged wife went straight to the girl and pulled her out of the bed. "Shame on you, how dare you came to my house and sleep with my husband?" "Please don't pull me, madam," responded the girl. "Ibtihal, don't touch her, she is my girlfriend," shouted Tariq. Then he held his wife's hand and began to pull her backward. "If she is your friend, then go and sleep with her on the street. This is not a brothel house for the night and street girls." "Please madam, stop, you are hurting me," pleaded the girl. When Dr. Ibtihal continued to pull her hand, the girl began to cry. On hearing her cry, the husband Tariq kicked his wife Ibtihal on her back. The powerful kick sent the angry wife straight against the wall. Dr. Ibtihal got injured in her face when she hit the wall. "How dare you kicked me because of this prostitute?" "Don't call me a prostitute." "Okay, if you don't want to go out of my house, I will show you where I am going to send you soon. This is not a brothel house." With a profusely bleeding face, Dr. Ibtihal rushed out of her husband's room and entered her room. Then she picked up the phone and dialed the police number. "Yes," shouted a policeman on the other line. Officer, there is a prostitute in my house. My name is Ibtihal Taha Al-Amin. I am a medical doctor and a married woman. I am working at Soba Hospital. When I returned from my night shift, I found a woman on the bed with my husband Tariq. I told her to leave my house, but she refused. She is a prostitute. My husband beat me when I tried to kick her out of my house. Where do you live? I live at Medinat Al Taif, 7th Street, and my house number is 198. Are you injured, madam? Yes, sir, my mouth is bleeding copiously. Okay, madam, I am sending a police car and ambulance to your house immediately. A few minutes later Dr. Ibtihal heard someone is loudly knocking on the outside door. She rushed out of her room and opened the door. Immediately, have entered 2 policewomen and 3 policemen followed by 3 people in civilian dresses. The injured wife pointed them to the room where her husband was because a prostitute girl beat her. Open the door, we are police officers, shouted one of the cops while his cricket bat-like hand is hammering on the door. Yes, sir, said the husband Tariq after he opened the door. Where is the woman? Which woman? The woman you have brought from the street. I haven't brought any woman from the street. Can you step aside and let us in? Tariq stepped aside and let the cops in his room. The so-called street girl began to shake when she saw the armed cops walk inside the room. One of the policewomen went to her and pulled her hand. Come with us, you dirty street hooker. Where are you taking her? Shouted the husband Tariq. To the lockup, replied the policewoman harshly. But what crime did Saham do? You also are coming with us. What crime have I done? You brought a prostitute in your house and beat your wife. Saham is not a prostitute. She is my wife too. The group felt as if lightning struck them when Tariq declared that the so-called prostitute was also his lawful wife. She is his second Muslim wife. He is lying, he has no wife except me, said the injured first wife. Do you have a marriage certificate? Asked the policewoman while she's still holding the hand of Saham. Yes, of course, I have our marriage certificate. Then the husband Tariq immediately walked a few righteous strides and threw open his bag. In the twinkling of an eye, a brand new sheet of paper appeared in his hand. He held it like a flag of peace and waved it to everyone to see. Another angry cop snatched the marriage certificate from his hand and had a quick glance at it. After that, he said to him, Sorry sir for the misunderstanding, and have a good night with your new Muslim bride Saham.